Hey curious friends, and welcome to the first of what I hope is many episodes of Plant Talk. Choosing my first guest was an absolute no-brainer. A few months ago when I was deep diving into grow lights, I reached out to several different suppliers. The responses that I got were mostly along the lines of, we haven't heard that question before, which is pretty much the story of my life as an autistic scientist. And that's when I connected with Jami, the passionate founder of the Backyard Botanist. Not only did she go the extra mile to answer the questions for me, but gave me the confidence to buy my very first Soltech grow light. It didn't take me long to buy two more. And as I've said in a number of my previous videos, they've made such a massive difference to my plant care routine. A little bit more about Jami before I introduce her to you all. I'm going to actually read this part just so I don't muck up the words. Jami grew up in the Isle of Wight, where her grandmother's green thumb inspired her lifelong love of plants and nature. After trying out various roles in ecology and horticulture, she found her true calling in Melbourne, where she completed a Bachelor of Science majoring in botany. In 2021, Jami turned her passion into a full-time venture with the Backyard Botanist, a business dedicated to making plant care accessible and fun to everyone. A big welcome to Plant Talk, Jami. Thank you so much for being here. Did I miss anything in the introduction that you would like to add?
I think you did an absolutely fantastic job. You've done your homework, which I love. Yeah, I thought it was beautiful. Thank you so much for the lovely things you said. Nothing I would add at all.
It's the first bio that I've had to do, and I wasn't sure how much to include, so thank you. And I wanted to say too, after talking to you on the phone and email, it's really nice to get to meet you in person virtually anyway. So the very first question that I've got here is, can you share the story of the Backyard Botanist and what inspired you to start your own online plant business?
With so many people, I'm sure you'll find this, the more people you speak with, stories will creep out of lockdown and the pandemic. So basically, I was working as a botanist and an ecologist, and I was actually really happy in my job. Absolutely loved it. Lots of field work. Great. And then obviously in Victoria, we got locked down, as with so many parts of the world. And there was a bit of an insecurity all of a sudden about my job. Was I going to be able to go out to work? We didn't really know at the start. And we were spending all this extra time at home and your social life got taken away. And my partner had wanted to build a website for a long time because he just loves doing that stuff for fun. And we put our two talents together and we thought, how could we incorporate horticulture and plants and the things that I really love with my partner Matt wanting to build a website and start an online business, and the rest is history.
It is so cool. The lockdowns were not fun at all and COVID was not fun, but I love hearing the positive stories that come out of it.
Absolutely. We always joke that it was our lockdown lemonade. We were chucked these lemons and we made lemonade with it. And we're still here to this day. So it really has worked out really well for us.
I'm so glad that was the first question that I asked. When I saw your bio on your shop, it was really nice to go, I'm talking to another science person. My husband always laughs at me. You are such a science nerd, Mel. So I always get really excited talking to a fellow scientist. Looking at your store, and as I said, I'm very familiar with your store. I love it. You've got a really good selection of products that you provide. How do you choose which products that you stock on your site?
Yes, the process starts out with, if there's something I think I need to do, gardening, indoor gardening, something I think I need or want. If I think, I could really use this, I'll go looking for it. And then equally, over the years that we've been open now and we've had lots of customers, lots of feedback. I've done a couple of Melbourne flower and garden shows, and we get a lot of people come up and say, do you sell this? Or do you sell this? And I'm like, if ever I don't, I write it down and I go and source it because people are looking for it. So we've gradually chipped away. Every time we get asked if we stock something that we don't already, we go and find it. And then we're really guided truly by quality. So we started off, a lot of our products are the UK really old brands like Hawes and Bergen and Bull. So they are primarily gardening brands, but they have moved into that more indoor plant market as well. And they're renowned for their quality. And then there's heaps of amazing people in Australia, Australian design, Australian made. And so we always look for things like that, things that we think of, we really stand by the quality. I'll try out most of the things we get. And then if it doesn't make the cut, we won't stock it. If it does, it goes on our store.
Yeah. I love that you're a guinea pig. Do you have any new products that you're looking at, though? Maybe some things that are coming in the future that might not be available at the moment. How do you keep an eye out for those new things that are coming?
Yeah, so we are always on the hunt. And if you do have any suggestions, please do let me know. A couple of things. One of my trusty botany tools is a hand lens. So they're like these tiny little magnifying glasses that you put right up to your eye so that you can look at really tiny details of a plant and its anatomy so that you can ID it down to perfection. And yes, we've got those coming in, which is really cool. So I really hope any students out there, any horticulture or botany students, maybe come to us instead of having to go to their uni shop or scour the internet. And then we do seem to be adding a lot to glassware. So we're really excited about the home propagation, which I love. It's one of my favorite things to do and promote. It's just so good. You can share them and give them to friends. You can just expand your own collection for free. So I love that. We're getting a lot of really funky glassware, so it looks really beautiful in your home while you're doing your propagation.
Oh, my ears are pricking up already. Propagation is one of my very favorite things. I actually laugh at myself. Even when I'm moving plants around, a little bit falls off. So, for example, I was moving my donkey's tail the other day and the little leaves fall off and I'm going around picking them all up and then adding them to the soil to try and propagate. Like, I just laugh. I can't let one single one of those leaves
No, don't let it go to waste. Yeah, it's great.
I can't wait to see the glassware. You've got me excited now. Do you have a propagation tip, Jamie? What's your favorite plant to propagate and what's a tip around propagation?
This is a slightly cop-out answer, but I love anything that's really easy because it's just really exciting when you see results fast. So any pothos is really easy. Rubber plants are really easy. Literally, like you said, if a bit falls off, you just put it in as long as it's got a node on it, put it in some water, and within a week you've got roots. It's amazing. And then I'd say my tip, which is something I picked up from working in horticulture, and it really does work, is to use a rooting hormone, whether it's a gel or a powder. Yeah, if you're using a suitable propagation technique for that, so taking a node cutting, or I think you can even use it when grafting and doing more sort of professional techniques, it just seems to give it that extra little edge and gives you a really good success rate, like really good strike rate. So we love it when propagation is successful. It's a bit miserable when it's not. So yeah, I would highly recommend using a rooting hormone, whether it is powder or gel form.
That's a fantastic tip because when I was new to plants, I used to use it and then my bottle ran out and I haven't done it since. So I'll replace that bottle and I'll keep using it. Next on my list, I love asking people this question. So can you tell us about the first plant that sparked your passion for houseplants and what was it that made it special to you?
So I've had houseplants around me all my life. Like you said, I've been raised by green thumbs. But when it came to my own journey and bringing particularly houseplants, when I first moved to Melbourne, I was really enamored by the idea of houseplants. But I was a student, and at the time, houseplants were really expensive because the trend was just peaking. So I didn't have a lot of money or a lot of space for many plants. But I just got super, super lucky one day. And my neighbor in my apartment block was throwing out, oh my God, this gigantic Howier palm. And it was a couple of meters tall, a really decent plant. It was super healthy. They just didn't want it in their house anymore. I couldn't really be bothered to sell it or anything. And I was like, oh, can I have it? And I'm like, yeah, please take it off my hands. And so I carried it up the stairs. It was really heavy. It was like a 30 centimeter pot. I sat it in my window and I still have that palm today, like 10 or 12 years later.
That is cool.
It was such a big, beautiful, foliage heavy plant. It completely transformed my space. And that was just the catalyst for me to be like, plants really transform a space. Pretty much from the day I got that, I've just been collecting ever since. And don't get me wrong, I've lost a few along the way, but that one is still with me. And I absolutely just adored the gift of it and then how it looked in my space, and it totally inspired me.
I can only imagine that instant greenery being a plant that, and I love that you were given it. That's even better. What a story.
Yeah.
Next on the list. Do you have a favorite houseplant now and what makes it stand out? Is that still your favorite or do you have other favorites now?
If I'm completely honest, Mel, it does rotate a little bit. And I think currently, I have this Philodendron gloriosum, which I think they're having a bit of a moment anyway. I'm seeing them sort of all over the place. It's the feature on one of my favorite books, like the cover shot, and oh my God, this plant is so beautiful. So I've got it on a moss pole. It's got these big velvety heart-shaped leaves. It's just so soft and it just keeps giving me new leaves, and I'm so happy with it. I'm so impressed. And everybody who visits my home and says, oh, wow, what's that plant? So it's a real showstopper. So currently that is my favorite, but I do change a bit as I get new ones and I rotate them, and whatever's in my eye line might take my fancy.
Actually, my favorite at the moment, I'm looking at the camera and it's opposite. So I have to say at the moment, my favorite is this Monstera. And it's my favorite because I got it during COVID, or maybe it was just after COVID. And for some reason, there was a shortage of Monstera here in Brisbane at the time. So it just so happened that I decided that's when I was going to get one. And I found this one. It was the very last one in Bunnings, and it was in behind other plants, and it was small and sick looking. And it's just gone bananas where I have it. And I've ordered online a proper moss pole for it. So I'm about to build my very first moss pole. I'm quite nervous.
That's so exciting. You'll never go back.
I hear this. Do you have any tips for me about moss poles? I'm thinking at the moment it's just one of those plastic ones with the solid back and then it's got the holes in the front.
Yeah, no, they're great. My only advice, maybe get a mister because they're quite handy for, or like some kind of spray bottle to keep it moist on the front.
Yep.
And then you can get these really fancy devices, or you can just use a bottle with a narrow opening. Dunk that on the top and let it drip through to hydrate the moss rather than having to angle your tap or use your hose. So it hydrates the moss gradually. When you just upside down a bottle of water in the top, it will just gradually release a drip at a time and make that nice and hydrated. So yeah, that's my tip for the moss pole.
Thank you. I'm so nervous. I ordered it about a month ago. It's been sitting in my plant stash and I keep looking at my Monstera going, you really need that pole.
Yeah, it will love it. It will love it.
Okay. Thank you. You've motivated me. This one I've been really interested to hear what you have to say about it. So what's the most common houseplant question that you get from your customers and what's your response to that?
Yeah, so there are a couple that come up all the time. The first one's quite quick and easy to answer. I do get asked a lot, what plant will grow in low light? And first response always, is it low light or is it no light? Do you have a window? Because if you don't have a window, you can't really have a plant in there unless you have a grow light. You can obviously have a plant in a room with no window as long as you rotate it and it doesn't live in there forever, because it won't live forever. That's the issue. You might get away with it for a month or so and then it will start to look really sad. It can't photosynthesize. So many people, particularly in cities, have bathrooms without windows, and people want to have plants in their bathroom because it's a beautiful thing to have. But I'm really sorry, guys. You just can't do it. That's the bad news. So that's a really common question. I just like to iron that out straight away, the expectation. And then another one that comes up, oh my gosh, almost daily for me, is fungus gnats. They're really annoying in your house, but they actually don't do that much damage unless you've got little germinants. They can ruin the roots of like seedlings. But if you've got established plants, they actually don't do a huge amount of damage, but they are obviously quite annoying to have in your house. My response is always a 3-pronged attack. So first of all, dry out your soil. Let that topsoil dry out, because they only live in like the top maybe 2-3 centimeters of your soil. You've got to let that dry out. They'll only live there if it's got moisture in it. So be brave, let your plant get really dry for a bit. Should kill out the population. While you're doing that, you can apply some neem oil or some kind of hydrogen peroxide, something to actually kill the ones that are still alive in that topsoil, get rid of any eggs and larvae interrupted at every stage of its life cycle. And then to prevent them coming back, you can apply some kind of substrate over the top that they don't like to live in or lay their eggs in. So there's this product called Gnat Off, which is a gritty, almost like a gravelly texture. And you pop that on the top and it smothers the one underneath and stops any new ones laying eggs. You can also use the sticky traps to catch the adults and get them in there to stop them reproducing. So yeah, there's a few things you can do, but I do recommend always like having multiple approaches to it if it's becoming a real problem. So dry out your soil, apply some kind of a natural pesticide, neem oil, sticky traps, something like that to get rid of them. And then also put that barrier there so they don't come back.
I have to agree. I get asked about fungus gnats too. And touch wood, I haven't had too many to deal with. So I'm not an expert on fungus gnats at all. So yes, thank you. That advice is appreciated. I'm sure it's coming. Don't worry. If you ask me in a few years' time, I don't think you can have plants without having fungus gnats.
I think at least at some point, yeah, everybody faces it at some point.
Absolutely. While we're talking about light, which is 100% my favorite subject, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, but photosynthesis, can't help myself all the way. So I mentioned in the intro That's how we met, was me deep diving into grow lights and you just being so nice and answering all my questions. And I have 2 bathrooms. So one of my bathrooms does have light, but not enough comes through. It's a sun-facing window and we have a veranda out the front, so very little light comes through. And our ensuite, it's just nothing at all. It's dark. But the grow lights, it's actually become the place that if one of my plants is struggling or if I've got propagations, that's where they're going.
So good. So good. Well done for recognizing that you don't have naturally the correct light, because people really fight that. And it's hard because obviously installing grow lights, it is a bit of a commitment. But it can be quite expensive, and it does mean that you're impacting the light in your home, basically. And then obviously lots of renters, it's not always that easy to install a pendant. Or the ones we stock I really love because there's a few options. So some of them are renter friendly because you can just put them in a screw-in light fitting, which is great because you can move that light fitting anywhere you go, even around your house as and where you need it. So that's really awesome. I think they're really growing in popularity, and I love that. And I think it's because people are moving towards, instead of this kind of almost like in fast fashion, instead of having, oh, I'll just buy a new houseplant and then neglect it and then just buy a new one. People are moving away from that, I think, and actually really, a lot of people are going for, oh, I might actually invest and have a few really large that I really take care of, and they're there and they're like a living piece of art in my home. Therefore, I'm going to make sure that I have all the right conditions for them. So I will invest and I'll buy a grow light. So I'm really enjoying seeing that kind of transition into giving their plants everything they need. So that's awesome. I think grow lights are, I think, a bit uncomfortable because it feels like, oh, am I going to need this big sheet of, how traditional grow lights, these kind of sheets of LED light, really serious operation.
Yep.
Yeah, but there's so many on the market now that are so home owner friendly, or even like just person friendly. There's bulbs that you can screw into any light fitting. There's pendants that you can put up on your wall. They look really beautiful. They're beautifully designed. They're actually a really lovely addition to your home without being big, ugly, horrible things that traditionally you grow cannabis under. I think that's really nice.
I've actually had that question when people go into my bathroom. Mel, what are you trying to grow here?
They don't look like that, do they? They don't look like where your brain goes when you think about a traditional grow light. They're really beautifully designed, and they're really friendly for your home. And I think they're great.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't agree more. So we've got the Soltec ones that I got from your store. And the thing I loved about those is they've just screwed straight into my fittings. They switch on. It's just been so easy. And then I was looking for some clip-on ones. Yeah, because we've got really high ceilings here and we don't actually have a lot of the standard light bulbs. And I got them from a local Australian supplier as well. And I've had so many compliments on both types. People have gone, oh, I love your new lights. And they haven't even realized that they were grow lights. They just thought they were new funky lights that I'd bought.
So good. Yeah, I think it's a part of the market that's really developing. Lots of designers going into it and lots of thought, because nobody wants those big, ugly, traditional grow lights in their home, but people do really want to be able to have plants anywhere. It's a really exciting industry, I think. I really actually hope that someone in Australia starts making them, because we get ours from Soltec, which is a US company, awesome company, but obviously they become very expensive because we have to get them from overseas. So I'd love it to see some Australian designed and made grow lights that are,
that would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
That would be great. I can't help it, the scientist in me, I'm doing a little bit of an experiment at the moment. So with the clip-on ones, I've got them in a few of our living areas, and I deliberately haven't rotated the plants because I actually thought that would be, firstly, it's showing that the grow light is working because the plants are really growing towards that light, but I actually thought it'd make a really nice video just to show the viewers why it is a good idea to turn your plants. I've only had the clip-on ones for probably a month or so now, and already most of my plants are actually leaning towards those lights and they're shooting up, and I just think that's saying a lot for the lights and how well they're working.
That's so good. Great to hear.
Yeah. And don't worry, then I will rotate them. I won't leave them on a permanent lean. Have you had any memorable interactions with customers about their houseplant successes and challenges? And what did you take away from those experiences?
I'm sorry, I really hope this isn't too much of a boring answer, but I think for me personally, my absolute favorite thing, because, and I'm sure you're the same actually, being somebody who has friends and interactions with people as somebody who's renowned at being a green thumb and good at plants. I hear so often, oh, I've got this problem, oh, how do I fix this problem? Or my plant's got a yellow leaf, or it's wilting, it looks dead. I hear that so much. I think the really memorable ones are when someone comes up to me and they say, oh, I bought a plant from you 3 years ago, and I've still got it, and it's like putting on new growth all the time, and I've propagated it and I've given them to my friends. And I think just a success story it absolutely lights me up. I feel so proud, even though most likely didn't grow that plant from the seed or a cutting. I most likely got it from a wholesaler, but I did always select them personally. Like, I really was very careful when I was selling plants about picking the best for my customers. That aside, it's just uplifting to hear a good news story, still flourishing years down the line. My gosh, they've got their money's worth and they're still getting so much joy from that plant. Like, that for me is memorable.
I absolutely love success stories too. Sometimes you put information out there, and I imagine you're the same. And to get that back to go, hey, you gave me this advice, or you gave me a plant, and this has happened. Oh, yeah, they make me smile all day.
It's just so nice because you do always get inundated with people struggling, which is really important. I love that people can ask for help, and I'm always happy to give advice, as I'm sure you are too. But yeah, just on the occasion that you get someone who gives you the positive feedback that either your advice worked or that they've just got it, it's just lovely.
Great answer. That's not a boring answer at all. The next question is around trends. So are there any current trends in house plant care or decor that you're particularly excited about?
Funnily enough, you've already mentioned my go-to. I don't think it's necessarily a new trend, but it definitely is something that has been trending for a while and I hope continues to trend. And that's moss poles. You mentioned it before and I just lit up because I think there's so many awesome people online showing you how much of a difference it can make to arrow plants. You'll notice from just a quick look on TikTok or Instagram, you'll see people who have been experimenting with moss poles for some time. And when you really think about it, it's actually really simple. You're just recreating nature, right? Areas that would traditionally grow up the outer layer of a tree, something that stays moist a lot. It goes up, they want to get to higher light. A moss pole is essentially just that. So it's a moist environment moving upwards, allowing them to do what they're meant to do in nature, which is climb. But it just works so well. I love it. I just think it's absolutely magic. The difference in the size of the leaves you can get from some of these plants, and then also the texture and the fenestration. Also, sometimes it changes the variegation in variegated plants. It's just really exciting. I think if you're someone who genuinely is excited by plants and getting the best out of them, it's transformative. So not a new trend, but something I think is going to continue. And I think I'm really just excited to see more and more people jumping on the bandwagon.
That's so good to hear. And I wouldn't have had the confidence, I don't think, if it hadn't been for other people on YouTube. I've watched so many videos of people. I'm like, okay, this doesn't look so hard. I think I can probably do it. And I really do feel as though this plant deserves it. I think it had 2 leaves when I first got it. And I just thought, you deserve a moss pole. You can be my very first guinea pig for a moss pole.
Yes, please do. And so there's a few people that I've seen who, it's just amazing. So from a science perspective, you get to see all the roots growing up the moss pole, which is really cool. That's something you normally is just underground in the pot, so you don't get to see it. Whereas if you use a moss pole, you can. And then you can propagate from that moss pole. Wait, have you seen where they just chop it in half? It's amazing. Yeah, like, if you're tall enough on the moss pole, you can just chop the moss pole in half because it's got its own root system. I know.
I feel so nervous.
I know. Honestly, I think I've watched people do it and they look nervous when they're doing it, but it seems to work pretty much every time. So just truly giving your plant everything it wants and needs, and it seems to really pay off. So I'm sure that your monstera is going to love it.
Oh, fingers crossed. It's on my list. Actually, we're heading off on a family holiday, so maybe when I get back. We're actually heading to Queenstown. My husband always threatens if he wins the lottery, that's where we're going to live. It's his very favourite place, and we haven't been since our children were born, so it's our boys' first trip overseas, and yeah, I hope they'll love it as much as we do.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Sorry, total side note.
No, go for it. Go on.
My partner and I met in Queenstown 14 years ago. To live there. We absolutely love it. We go back and visit. We've got friends still there. Oh, it's a beautiful part of the world.
The first time we visited in our 20s, and I just remember I could not stop taking photos. And it was before the days I think I've even had an iPhone. I think it was just an old school camera, and it was just one photo after the other. And I've actually said to the boys, my eldest son is into photography. I said, you wait. You're just going to be behind that camera the entire time.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's so exciting.
We're putting some pictures online of our trip, and my husband and the boys are snow snowboarder tragic, so we're hoping we haven't left it too late in the season. There should be still a little bit of snow for them to at least have a go as well. It's always fun regardless, even if there isn't a lot of snow.
Definitely, it's always fun. And being in a town as beautiful as that with as much going on, obviously the snow's a bonus, but it actually doesn't really matter. You're going to have a great time no matter what.
Actually, that's my list. The final thing I've got here is if anyone wants to find you on socials, Jami, where do they find you? So I'll put a link to your store in the description of the video, but where do they find you on socials?
Amazing. Thank you so much. On socials, we primarily are Instagram. So we are at Backyard Botanist _. And I dare say it's the same on TikTok. Truth be told, I am yet to dip my toe in the TikTok pool. But watch this space. And I think Facebook is the same as well.
You have just given us so many useful tips. I'm sure after this conversation, you're going to get people coming and looking for you. Thank you so much for spending time with us this afternoon. I've learned so much, and I imagine everyone else has learned a lot. And thank you for saying yes. Thank you for being the very first person on Plant Talk. I've had so much fun this afternoon. It is so nice talking to another science and plant person.
I am so privileged. I was so privileged when you asked me. Thank you so much. Totally flattered. And I would absolutely love to chat to you anytime.
A huge thank you, Jami, for spending time with us today. It was an absolute pleasure to learn about your journey and can't wait to watch your store continue to grow online. For anyone who's interested in checking out Jami's store, I'll make sure I leave the link in the description below. And to all my curious friends, thank you so much for keeping Jami and I company today. Until my next video, take care.